The morning alarm buzzed in Ambassador Jake Morrison's empty office on Centauri Station. His coffee cup sat cold on the metal desk, a half-eaten sandwich beside it. The lights flickered on automatically as they did every day, but no one was there to see them. 3 months had passed since anyone had walked through that door. Docile Chairman Vextar stood in the observation deck, his 6 arms crossed as he stared out at the stars. The Zelani leader's blue skin had turned a darker shade, a sign of deep worry among his people. Behind him, other council members whispered in their native tongues. The emergency session had been called for the 3rd time this week. Still nothing from the human colonies, Security Chief Morduk reported. The large reptilian being's scales clicked as he moved. His report tablet showed red markers across the entire galaxy map. Every single human settlement showed the same. Status? Empty. Vextar turned his large black eyes toward the security chief. No distress signals? No signs of fighting? Nothing, Chairman. The colonies look like everyone just stopped what they were doing and left. Meals half-cooked on stoves. Children's toys scattered on floors. Ships sitting in docking bays with engines still warm. But not one human anywhere. The other council members shifted nervously. Ithara of the peaceful Solarans floated forward, her crystalline body catching the light. This makes no sense. Humans don't just disappear. They're too stubborn for that. Maybe. They finally learned their place, muttered Korth of the Drakmori Syndicate. The scarred warrior's comment drew angry looks from several delegates. Morduk pulled up another report. We found something strange on New Texas. The human colony there had over 2 million people last week. Today, nothing. But they're automated. Systems are still running. Defense grids, power plants, water treatment. Everything working perfectly without any humans to run them. What about their military? Asked Trade Minister Zephan of the Mentari Collective. The human fleets? Gone. 2. Every ship, every crew member. Admiral Kate Sullivan's flagship was found drifting near Proxima Station, empty. Her personal quarters looked like she had just stepped out for a moment. Even her pet cat was gone. The silence in the chamber was thick. For 50 years, humans had been part of the Galactic Council. They were loud, aggressive, and often disagreed with everyone else, but they were always there. Their sudden absence felt wrong. Play the last transmission again, Vextar ordered. The main screen flickered to life. Admiral Kate Sullivan appeared, her brown hair tied back in the military style humans favored. Her green eyes looked tired but determined. The message was only 30 seconds long. Chairman Vextar, the Council has made its position clear regarding our proposals. We understand your decision. The human delegation withdraws all pending legislation. We thank the Council for the opportunity to serve. Admiral Sullivan out. That was it? No anger, no threats, no dramatic speeches. Just a simple goodbye. She seemed calm, observed Dr. Theises of the Kepler Medical Alliance. Too calm for a human. Ithara's light pulsed worried colors. The humans were upset about the Frontier Protection Act being voted down, but they've lost votes before. They always came back fighting harder. This was different, Morduk said. He pulled up voting records. They withdrew the proposal themselves. 3 days before the vote. Then they stopped attending meetings. Their embassy staff started packing. We thought they were just having one of their emotional outbursts. Vextar remembered that day clearly. The humans had proposed expanding protection to outer rim colonies. Most council members voted against it, saying the cost was too high. The humans had sat quietly through the debate, which was unusual. Normally they argued for hours. Maybe they went back to their home system, suggested Korth. Earth is still there. Checked already, Morduk replied. Earth is empty too. 9 billion humans gone. Their moon bases, their orbital stations, their asteroid mining operations, all abandoned but still functioning. The implications were staggering. Humanity had vanished from an area spanning thousands of light years. It would have required massive coordination and planning. But there had been no signs, no preparations that anyone noticed. Wait, said Trade Minister Zephan. If they planned this, where did they get the ships? Moving that many people would need thousands of vessels. Morduk's expression grew more troubled. That's what worries me. We're missing over 300 human military ships. Cargo vessels, colony transports, even small personal craft. It's like they gathered everything they could fly and left. But where? Ithara asked. Space is vast. They could be anywhere. Or nowhere, Korth said darkly. Maybe they decided to end it all rather than deal with council politics. The suggestion hung in the air like a poison cloud. No one wanted to consider that possibility. Humans don't give up, Vextar said firmly. They're survivors. They fought through wars, plagues, and disasters on their own world. They explored space when they barely had the technology. Whatever happened, they're still out there somewhere. Then, why leave without telling us? Asked Dr. Thises. They could have at least said goodbye properly. Morduk switched to internal security footage from the human embassy. It showed the last day of activity. Staff members moved with purpose, packing boxes and shutting down equipment, but they worked quietly, efficiently. No tears, no arguments, they looked like people completing a job. Look at this, Morduk pointed to the time stamp. They finished, packing at exactly midnight station time. Then the lights went out and no one came back. Security cameras in the docking bay show human ships leaving throughout that night. But here's the strange part. The bay doors opened and closed automatically. No one was at the control stations. The council members exchanged worried glances. Humans were known for their technology, but this level of coordination seemed impossible. They planned this for months, Vextar realized. Maybe years. While we debated and argued, they were preparing to leave. Good riddance, Korth muttered. Now we can have some peace. But even as he said it, reports were coming in from across the galaxy. Pirate attacks on merchant ships. Strange signals from the Outer Rim. Systems going dark without explanation. For 50 years, human patrols had kept the space lanes safe. Their absence was already being felt. Vextar looked out at the stars again. Somewhere out there, humanity was watching and waiting. But for what? And more importantly, would they ever come back? The emergency session ended without answers, but with a growing sense that something terrible was about to begin. The alarm screamed through the bridge of the Solaran vessel. Peaceful dawn as Captain Lithara watched her sensors fill with red warning signals. Drakmori warships were dropping out of hyperspace all around her peaceful convoy. She had never seen so many enemy vessels in one place. Distress signal sent, her communications officer reported, his crystalline voice shaking with fear. No response from the human patrol fleet. Because there is no human patrol fleet, Lithara whispered. The realization hit her like a physical blow. For 30 years, human ships had protected these trade routes. Captain Ryan Cole's task force had always responded within minutes to any threat. But Ryan Cole was gone along with every other human in the galaxy. The Drakmori flagship opened fire without warning. Energy beams tore through the convoy's shields like paper. The Solarans had built their ships for trade and exploration, not war. Within moments, 3 vessels were drifting hulks in space. 2 weeks had passed since humanity's disappearance, and the galaxy was starting to crack. The Drakmori Syndicate, quiet for 50 years, had launched their biggest offensive in decades. They swept through the Kepler sector like a plague, destroying everything in their path on Centauri Station. Council Chairman Vextar stared at the damage reports flooding his desk. The peaceful Kepler Defense Force had crumbled in less than 3 days. Without human tactical support and firepower, they stood no chance against professional warriors. How many casualties? He asked Security Chief Morduk. 12 million so far, and climbing. 3 entire star systems have gone dark. The Drakmori aren't just raiding anymore. They're conquering territory. Vextar's 4 hands shook as he reviewed the files. Where are our fleets? The Zelani Navy? The Mentari Guard? Morduk's scales darkened with embarrassment. Chairman, we don't have real military fleets. We have police ships and patrol boats. Nothing that can fight Drakmori battle cruisers. The truth was finally coming out. For generations, the Council had relied on human forces to do their fighting. While other species focused on trade, diplomacy, and technology, humans had built the weapons and trained the soldiers that kept the galaxy safe. "We need to call an emergency meeting," Vexstar decided, all remaining council members. The emergency session that followed was chaos. Representatives from 6 different species argued and pointed fingers while their colonies burned. The Mentari blamed the Zelani for not predicting this. The Crystalline Collective accused the Solarans of being too trusting. Everyone had an excuse but no solutions. "This is exactly why we needed the humans," shouted Trade Minister Zephan. "They warned us as would happen if we kept cutting military funding." "The humans wanted too much control," Korth argued from his seat. The Drakomori representative seemed pleased with his people's success. "They demanded seats on every committee, votes on every decision." "Because they were the ones dying to protect us," Ithara said sadly. Her light pulsed with grief for the lost colonies. "How many human soldiers gave their lives for our peace?" Dr. Thizes pulled up old casualty reports. In the last 10 years alone, over 50,000 human military personnel died in the line of duty. They lost more people in 1 year than some of our species lose in a century. The numbers were sobering. Humans had suffered 90% of all military casualties in Council space, but they represented only 15% of the total population. They had been paying for galactic peace with their blood. "Look at this," Mordek said, projecting Captain Ryan Cole's patrol routes onto the main screen. The humans weren't just flying random missions. Every route was carefully planned to contain specific threats. The map showed a web of human patrol paths covering thousands of light years. Each route blocked known smuggling corridors, pirate bases, and invasion routes. Without those patrols, the galaxy's criminal elements were free to move as they pleased. "There's more," Mordok continued. "We found Captain Cole's personal files in his abandoned quarters. He was tracking 17 different threat groups, including some we've never heard of. The files were disturbing reading. The humans had been fighting a shadow war for decades, dealing with dangers the Council never knew existed. Slave traders, weapons smugglers, terrorist cells, and worse. All contained or eliminated by human forces operating in secret. "Why didn't they tell us about these threats?" asked Dr. Thizes. "They tried," Vexstar admitted quietly. "Remember all those intelligence briefings we ignored? The reports we said were too detailed? The warnings we called paranoid human thinking?" The council members fell silent. They had dismissed human concerns as military thinking, too focused on worst-case scenarios. Now those scenarios were becoming reality. The worst news came from the Outer Rim territories. An entire sector had gone silent after the humans left. No communications, no trade ships, no signals of any kind. It was as if that region of space had simply stopped existing. "We need to send a reconnaissance mission," suggested Ithara. "With what ships?" Mordok asked bitterly. "Our exploration vessels? They'd be destroyed before they reached the Outer Rim." Meanwhile, reports arrived of something even more troubling. Human colonies and installations that had been abandoned were somehow still defending themselves. When Drakmori raiders tried to loot the mining station on asteroid Gamma 7, automated defense systems had wiped out their entire landing force. The humans left their security systems running, Dr. Thizes realized. Their computers are still following the last orders they received. It was both reassuring and terrifying. Human technology continued to protect empty worlds and abandoned stations, but no one knew how long the automated systems would function or what would happen when they finally failed. On the abandoned world of New Texas, surveillance drones recorded Drakmori ground forces approaching the main colony. The settlement looked completely deserted, houses standing empty under the alien sun. But as the raiders entered the town square, hidden turrets rose from the ground. The battle was over in minutes. Human defense systems, programmed by engineers who were no longer there, had eliminated every invader. The colony remained secure, protecting nothing but empty buildings and silent streets. "They're still fighting for us," Ithara whispered as she watched the security footage. Even though they're gone, they're still trying to protect us. The realization brought tears to her crystalline eyes. Humanity had not abandoned their posts out of anger or spite. They had simply removed themselves from the equation while leaving their protective systems in place. Their machines continued. The mission their creators had started, but machines could not replace human judgment, human creativity, or human determination. As the days passed and more threats emerged from the darkness between stars, the galaxy began to understand what they had lost. The humans were not just soldiers or protectors. They had been the immune system that kept galactic civilization healthy. Without them, the body was beginning to fail. The merchant ship Prosperity's Dawn sent its final transmission at exactly 14:22 Galactic Standard Time. Captain Norik's voice crackled through the static as he reported unknown contacts approaching his position near Haven Station, the former human outpost on the edge of civilized space. "Multiple bogies incoming fast," Norik had said. "They don't match any known ship designs, requesting immediate assistance." That was 1 month after humanity's disappearance, and the message was the last anyone heard from the cargo vessel. When the rescue fleet arrived 3 days later, they found Haven Station's docking bays intact and protected by still functioning human defense systems. But the Prosperity's Dawn was gone, leaving only debris scattered across the asteroid field. Security. Chief Mordek stood in the council chamber, his reptilian features grim as he delivered the latest reports. The situation was deteriorating faster than anyone had imagined possible. Without human early warning networks, threats were penetrating deep into council space before being detected. "The Void Stalkers are moving," he announced, and the chamber fell silent. Even the name sent chills through every species present. The ancient machine intelligence had been contained beyond the galactic rim for over a century, held back by human patrol fleets and monitoring stations. Chairman Vextar felt his blood turn cold. "How many incursions?" 17 confirmed sightings in the last week. Their scout ships are probing former human territory, testing our defenses. Without Captain Jake Morrison's early warning grid, we're blind to their movements until they're already inside our borders. Dr. Theises accessed her medical files, her hands shaking. "The Void Stalkers nearly wiped out the Kepler colonies, too. 100 years ago, it took a combined fleet of every species to stop them. The humans volunteered to maintain the containment after that. And we let them," Ithara said bitterly. "We were happy to forget about that threat as long as someone else was watching for it." The truth was becoming clearer with each passing day. Humanity had not just been the Council's military arm, they had been its memory. While other species focused on their immediate concerns, humans had maintained vigil against ancient horrors and forgotten threats. Mordek pulled up classified files that had been sealed in human archives. The documents revealed the true scope of humanity's protective work. Engineer Sam Rodriguez had documented containment protocols for 19 different cosmic threats, most of which the Council had forgotten existed. "Look at this," Mordek said, highlighting one report. "The plague spores of Kepler 442b, the humans have been maintaining a quarantine around that system for 80 years. The automated systems are still running, but we don't know how long they'll last. The spores were a biological weapon left behind by a dead civilization. They could adapt to any life form and spread across entire star systems in weeks. Only constant monitoring and periodic sterilization kept them contained. Who knows how to maintain those systems?" asked Trade Minister Zephin. "Dr. Elena Rodriguez was the lead scientist," Mordek replied. "But she's gone with all the other humans. Her research labs on Luna Base are sealed tight. We can't even get inside without her biometric codes." The pattern was repeating across human space. Critical systems and installations remained functional but completely inaccessible. The humans had designed their most important defenses to work only with human operators. Without them, the galaxy's guardians were slowly failing on the frontier. World of New Montana, automated mining operations continued to extract rare metals needed for advanced technology. But the refinery systems required human oversight to function properly. Within weeks, the complex processes would break down without maintenance. "We're losing our technological edge," Dr. Thises reported. 40% of our advanced manufacturing depends on human-designed systems. Medical equipment, quantum computers, faster-than-light communications, all of it was built or improved by human engineers. The Crystalline Collective had already started to feel the effects. Their homeworld's defense grid relied on human-made quantum processors that were beginning to malfunction. Without replacement parts or technical support, their most protected world was becoming vulnerable. "The Drakmori know this," Korth said from his seat. His scarred face showed something that might have been regret. "My people are not just raiders anymore. They're targeting human installations, trying to capture technology before it fails." It was a race against time. Every faction in the galaxy was scrambling to secure human technology before it became unusable. But most human systems were too complex for other species to understand or maintain. The worst news came from the deep space monitoring stations. These automated platforms had been humanity's eyes and ears, watching for threats from outside the galaxy. One by one, they were going silent as their power systems failed or their programming encountered errors that only human technicians could fix. "We're going blind and deaf," Mordek said grimly. "In 6 months, we won't know what's happening beyond our immediate space." The council members sat in stunned silence. They had thought humans were just another species, perhaps more aggressive than most, but ultimately replaceable. Now they were learning that humanity had become the nervous system of galactic civilization. Ithara accessed the abandoned human embassy one more time, walking through empty corridors that still smelled faintly of human presence. In Ambassador Jake Morrison's office, she found his personal journal lying open on the desk. The final entry was dated 3 days before the Exodus. Morrison had written about the Council's rejection of the humanitarian aid expansion proposal, the 4th human initiative voted down that year. "They see us as their attack dogs," Morrison had written. "Useful for fighting their wars and containing their nightmares, but not worthy of respect or partnership. We offer aid to refugee species, they call it wasteful spending. We propose expanded. Medical support, they say it's too expensive. We request representation equal to our contributions. They remind us we're still the newest members." The words stung because they were true. The Council had taken human protection for granted while denying them the political power that matched their responsibilities. "They want us to risk our lives for their safety," the journal continued, "but they don't trust us with their decisions. We're good enough to die for the galaxy, but not good enough to help shape its future." Ithara closed the journal with trembling hands. The humans had not left in anger or revenge. They had simply grown tired of being used and unappreciated. They had walked away from a relationship that had become one-sided and unhealthy, but their departure was revealing just how much the galaxy had depended on them. Trade routes were collapsing, ancient threats were stirring, and technology was failing across known space. The careful balance that had maintained galactic peace for generations was crumbling as she left the embassy. Ithara wondered if it was already too late to fix what had been broken. The humans were gone, and with them had gone the galaxy's ability to protect itself. The question now was whether civilization could survive long enough to earn back humanity's trust. The emergency beacon from the solar and homeworld screamed across space for 3 days before anyone could respond. When the rescue fleet finally arrived, they found the once beautiful crystal cities in ruins. Drakmori banners hung from the tallest spires, and columns of smoke rose from what had been peaceful residential districts. Chairman Vextar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the destruction through the viewscreen. His forearms trembled with rage and grief. The Solarans had been the most peaceful species in the galaxy, their crystalline forms reflecting light in beautiful patterns. Now their homeworld was a conquered territory. "How many survivors?" he asked Captain Thises, who had volunteered to lead the medical relief effort. "Maybe 2 million out of 8 billion, she replied, her voice breaking. "The Drakmori didn't just conquer them. They enslaved the survivors and destroyed everything else." It had been 3 months since humanity's disappearance, and half the Council's member species had either fallen to invasion or retreated to their core worlds. The Crystalline Collective had sealed their borders after Void Stalker scouts penetrated their outer defenses. The Mentari trade networks had collapsed under constant piracy attacks. Security Chief Mordek joined them on the bridge, carrying a data tablet filled with reports that nobody wanted to read. "It's not just military failure," he said grimly. "Our entire infrastructure is breaking down. The quantum communication network is failing sector by sector. Food shipments aren't reaching isolated colonies. Even our basic services depend on human technology." The pattern was clear now. Humanity had not just been the Council's protectors, they had been the engineers and technicians who kept galactic civilization running. Their sudden absence had created a cascade of failures that was bringing down everything they had helped build. "We need to get into their facilities," Vextar decided. "The emergency protocols, the backup systems, the technical manuals, everything we need to survive is locked away in human installations." They had tried before and failed. Human security systems were designed to be tamper-proof. Admiral Kate Sullivan's tactical computers required her handprint and voice pattern, Dr. Elena. Rodriguez's medical labs responded only to her genetic signature. Commander Jake Morrison's strategic databases demanded retinal scans from someone who was no longer in the galaxy. "What about their emergency caches?" suggested Captain Nices. "Humans always prepared for disasters. They must have left supplies and equipment for emergencies." The search had been going on for weeks. Teams of specialists were examining every human facility, looking for any way to access their systems or find their hidden resources. Most searches turned up nothing, but occasionally they found something that gave them hope. On the mining world of Kepler 7, rescue teams had discovered a small cache hidden in the maintenance tunnels beneath the main colony. Marine Sergeant Danny White had left basic supplies, weapons, and a handwritten note that read, "For the innocent who remember kindness." The message was simple, but it carried deep meaning. The humans had not forgotten their allies, even as they prepared to leave. They had left gifts for those who had treated them with respect and friendship. Dr. Thizes had found a similar cache on the medical station where she had worked alongside human doctors. Dr. Elena Rodriguez had hidden advanced medical supplies and treatment protocols in a storage room that only opened when Dr. Thizes spoke her own name. The human doctor had programmed the system to recognize her voice, trusting her with life-saving resources, but these small gifts could not solve the larger crisis. The galaxy needed access to human military systems, their strategic databases, and their technical expertise. Without those resources, civilization would continue to crumble. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Ithara, still searching through the abandoned human embassy, discovered Admiral Kate Sullivan's personal quarters had been left partially unsealed. Unlike the official military systems, the Admiral's private computer contained personal files and correspondence. "Look at this," Ithara called to the others as she accessed Sullivan's private journal. The entries painted a picture of growing frustration and disappointment with council politics over several years. "They vote down our humanitarian proposals, but expect us to die for their protection," one entry read. The refugee assistance program could have saved millions, but they called it too expensive. The medical expansion initiative would have prevented 3 separate plague outbreaks, but they said it gave humans too much influence. Another entry was even more revealing. 73 human soldiers died defending Mentari trade routes last month. The Mentari representatives sent a formal complaint about our excessive use of force against the pirates who were murdering their crews. They want us to stop the attacks but not harm the attackers. The pattern was clear in every entry. The Council had demanded human protection while simultaneously restricting human methods and denying human requests for support. They wanted the benefits of human military power without accepting human political influence or humanitarian goals. They treated us like servants, Vextar realized as he read the files. We gave them responsibilities without rights, duties without respect. The most damaging entries came from the final months before the Exodus. Admiral Sullivan had documented secret meetings between human leaders, discussing their growing isolation within the council structure. Captain Cole reports another diplomatic protest about our defensive positions in the Outer Rim, one entry read. They don't want us to build bases there, but they expect us to somehow protect the trade routes from empty space. General Martinez says we're fighting a war with one hand tied behind our backs. The final entry was dated just 1 week before humanity's disappearance. The decision has been made. We cannot continue to serve people who do not value our service. The evacuation plans are complete. By the time they read this, we will be gone. Ithara felt sick as she realized the implications. Humanity had been planning their departure for months, possibly years. They had not left in anger or spite, but after careful consideration and growing disappointment with their treatment. There's more, she said, accessing another file. Coordinates. The display showed a star map marking a location far beyond the galactic rim in the empty space between galaxies. A single line of text accompanied the coordinates. When you're ready to listen, not just command. Chairman Vexstar stared at the screen for long minutes, understanding finally dawning in his mind. The humans had not vanished into nothing. They had gone somewhere specific, somewhere they could build a new life away from council politics and restrictions. They're out there, he whispered. They're waiting. Waiting for what? Asked Dr. Thises. For us to grow up, Vexstar replied. Sadly, for us to learn to value what we had instead of taking it for granted. The coordinates offered hope, but they also represented a choice. The council could try to contact humanity and beg them to return, but that would mean admitting their mistakes and accepting human demands for equal treatment. As reports continued to arrive about failing systems and advancing enemies, Vexstar realized they might not have a choice. The galaxy was dying without its protectors, and pride might be a luxury they could no longer afford. The journey to the coordinates took 2 weeks through hyperspace, traveling further from home than any council ship had ever gone. Chairman Vexstar stood on the bridge of the diplomatic vessel Unity's Hope. As they approached the location, Admiral Kate Sullivan had left in her personal files. What they found defied every expectation. New Terra hung in the darkness between galaxies like a miniature world, but it was clearly artificial. The massive structure stretched for thousands of kilometers, its surface covered with cities, farms, and industrial complexes. Docking bays large enough to hold entire fleets dotted its hull, and defensive platforms surrounded it like protective moons. How long have they been building this? Whispered Dr. Thises as she stared at the viewscreen. Decades, Security Chief Mordek replied, his voice filled with awe. Maybe longer. This isn't something you construct in a few years. They've been planning this exodus for generations. The communication channel crackled to life, and a familiar voice filled the bridge. Council vessel, this is New Terra Control. You are cleared for Docking Bay 7. Please follow the guidance beacons and maintain minimal speed. It was Captain Ryan Cole, though his voice sounded older and more tired than they remembered. The man who had once commanded human patrol fleets was now apparently directing traffic for humanity's new home. The docking bay was enormous, large enough to hold a dozen council ships. As their vessel settled onto the landing platform, Vexstar could see other ships nearby. Some were clearly human designs, but others looked unfamiliar. The humans had not been alone in their exile. Captain Cole met them at the airlock, wearing simple civilian clothes instead of his old military uniform. His brown hair had more gray than before, and his face showed the lines of someone who had carried heavy responsibilities for too long. Chairman Vexstar, he said politely. I wasn't sure you would come. We had to, Vexstar replied. The galaxy is falling apart without you, Cole nodded sadly. We know, we've been monitoring the situation. He led them through corridors filled with bustling activity. Humans of all ages moved with purpose, building their new civilization with the same determination they had once shown protecting the old one. Children ran through the halls, their laughter echoing off the metal walls. How many people live here? Asked Ithara. 15 billion and growing, Cole answered. We brought everyone Every human colony, every family, every individual who wanted to come. This is our new home. They passed through agricultural sections where vast farms grew under artificial suns, industrial zones where new ships were being constructed, and residential areas that looked like peaceful Earth neighborhoods transplanted to space. It was clear that humanity had not just fled the galaxy, they had recreated their entire civilization. "You've been watching us fail," Dr. Thises said. "It was not a question." "We've been watching you learn," Cole corrected gently. "The same way a parent watches a child learn to walk. You have to fall down before you understand how to balance." They entered a large conference room where other figures waited. Admiral Kate Sullivan sat at the head of the table, her military bearing intact despite civilian clothes. Dr. Elena Rodriguez was there too, along with Ambassador Jake Morrison and dozens of other humans the council members recognized. "You look surprised to see us," Admiral Sullivan said with a slight smile. "Did you think we had died?" "We hoped you would come back," Vextar admitted. "The galaxy needs you." "The galaxy used us," Sullivan replied, her voice firm but not angry. "There's a difference between being needed and being valued." Jake Morrison leaned forward in his chair. "Do you know how many humans died protecting council space in the last 50 years? Over 200,000. Do you know how many statues or memorials the council built to honor their sacrifice? 0. The numbers hit like physical blows. The council members had never considered the cost of human protection in personal terms. You treated us like hired soldiers, Dr. Rodriguez added. Useful for fighting your wars and handling your dirty work, but not worthy of respect or partnership. When we proposed humanitarian aid, you called it wasteful. When we requested equal representation, you reminded us we were still newcomers. We made mistakes, Vextar said quietly. We see that now. Mistakes can be forgiven, Admiral Sullivan said. Patterns of behavior are harder to overlook. For decades, you accepted our service while denying us dignity. You wanted our protection without our participation. Cole activated a holographic display showing the current state of council space. Red zones marked areas under attack, yellow showed failing systems, and green indicated stable regions. There was very little green left. The Drakomori have conquered 6 systems, he reported. The Void Stalkers have broken containment in 3 sectors. Piracy has increased by 400%. Half your member species have retreated to their homeworlds or fallen completely. Then you know we need your help, Ethara pleaded. You need to help yourselves, Sullivan replied. We can't keep solving your problems for you. That's what created this situation in the first place. Dr. Rodriguez stood and walked to the window, looking out at the busy corridors of New Terra. We didn't leave out of spite or revenge. We left because the relationship had become unhealthy for everyone involved. You had stopped growing as a civilization because you relied on us to handle every challenge. But people are dying, Dr. Thises said desperately. People were always dying, Morrison replied sadly. The difference is that now you see the cost. Instead of letting us pay it for you? The room fell silent as the truth settled over the council delegation. They had come expecting to negotiate humanity's return, but they were learning that the problem was deeper than they had understood. What do you want from us? Vextar finally asked. Admiral Sullivan smiled for the first time since they had arrived. That's the right question. We want partnership, not servitude. We want respect, not just gratitude. We want equal voices in decisions that affect all our lives. And if we agree? Good, then we come home, she said simply. Not as your protectors, or your servants, but as your equals. Cole reactivated the display, but this time it showed something different. Green indicators began appearing across the galaxy as automated human systems came back online. Patrol routes resumed under AI control, defense grids activated, and monitoring. Stations began transmitting again. We never really left our posts, Cole explained. We just removed ourselves from the equation until you were ready to treat us properly. Our machines have been maintaining essential systems this whole time. You were testing us, Vextar realized. We were giving you time to grow, Sullivan corrected. The galaxy needs to learn to protect itself. not just rely on human soldiers to solve every problem. The final negotiation took hours, but the outcome was never really in doubt. The Council had learned the hard way that they needed humanity, not just as protectors but as partners. The new Galactic Accords were signed that same day, granting humans full representation and decision-making, authority in exchange for their return. As the human ships began emerging from the dark between stars, returning to a galaxy that had finally learned to value them, Chairman Vexstar realized that some things truly could not be undone. The old relationship of master and servant was gone forever, replaced by something better, genuine partnership between equals.